Patrick, good evening. Thank you so much for taking time for joining me tonight, and welcome to the All Around Adventure podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation. You and I just connected recently, just a couple of months ago, but I've learned quickly that there's some overlap in both of our stories. Both are veterans, both are into resilience, the outdoors, and everything like that. So I'm looking forward to hearing about some of what you've been through already and some of the stuff that you've learned along the way. But just to kind of, I guess, start this off, I mean, I guess with a background such as yours, let's just go back to the beginning, I suppose. So I know you are former Army, so that was a path that you chose long ago. So take us back then and just tell us what sort of set you down that path to join the Army.
Oh man, so we're going in the way back machine because the Army was a few lifetimes ago. But yeah, I don't know, man. I grew up in rural Wisconsin. I've always enjoyed messing around in the outdoors. The Kettle Moraine Forest was behind our house, so when I was a kid, I mean those were my stomping grounds. It was out in the woods, and I really think that kind of set the stage for things in the future. When I graduated high school, I started down the path of college, actually, before joining the military. And when I was there, I was looking into you can actually go to school to be like a recreational guide, like adventure tourism type of stuff. I thought that was really cool. I also had a job working as a homeless shelter supervisor, and this was up in Moorhead, Fargo, North Dakota. And I got to say that really, I probably didn't realize it at the time, but I think that experience was priming me for what I do now. Because while I was working there, I mean, there were people, adults, families, men, women, children, right? All different walks of life, all different backgrounds. And they were all trying to survive. Like they were all trying to make their way in the world. And it was an eye-opening experience for me coming from, rural Wisconsin to see, in the city. This was kind of up by Fargo, North Dakota. So bigger group of people, different walks of life. And it really started, getting me thinking about how I could better prepare myself for the future. And I really think that had an influence on me joining the military soon after. So when I was thinking about joining the Army, they were offering like all these different types of jobs and stuff. And I was like, man, like I don't want a desk job, right? Stupid me. And I was like, then they're like, oh, well, infantry is pretty cool. And, the cavalry scouts are pretty cool too. And they were talking about the differences. And I was like, yeah, so the Cav Scouts, they get to do all the stuff that infantry does, but they drive instead of walk. Sign me up. And that that was kind of like 18-year-old Patrick's thought process at the time. But man, yeah, the Army, that was, I was in it for almost 13 years before I was medically retired, and had several deployments overseas. I was stationed in Louisiana when Hurricane Katrina rolled through. And I mean, if you're stationed in Louisiana, you're going to have a bunch of other hurricanes. Katrina just gets a lot of the publicity. But going to third world countries, responding to natural disasters, right? That shapes you in a way where you start to realize how good we have it here in the West and the things we take for granted. Like utilities that work all the time, like being able to flush a toilet and it goes away somewhere not in your backyard, having electricity, having grocery stores with food that isn't spoiled or rotten, not having to worry about warlords and people who do evil things, right? I mean, there's certainly people in the U.S. who are exposed to that, but not nearly on the level of some other places. When I eventually was done with the military, I went back to school. I had my own forestry business. I did forestry sales in the state of Michigan for a while. So I was out in the woods. It was a one-man operation. So I was out there in the wilderness doing my thing. I made custom knives for a little bit. I had my own custom knife shop. And between all of that, so I was doing, we had a volunteer search and rescue group that I became the training officer for. And as all this stuff was happening, somehow I got involved with Recoil Offgrid and started writing for them, because Offgrid covers all things preparedness, survival, self-reliance, that sort of thing. And so that was right up my alley. And eventually, 6 years down the road, I've taken over the brand completely. I'm the senior editor of Offgrid now. And that's what I do full time, is try to share knowledge that might be potentially life-saving for somebody in the audience who's either reading a story or, watching your podcast or, whatever. Any way I can get in front of people and share something that might, save their life down the road. That's what I'm all about. And that's kind of the condensed version of the past, 30 years of my life.
Well, quite a bit to unpack there, but something stood out to me about what you just said. Said that you were deployed to a lot of developing countries throughout your career, and just that perspective that it gave you is just that how fortunate are you to be living in a developed country like the United States, where you can turn on a faucet, have like a seemingly endless supply of clean drinking water. You could stock your fridge or your freezer and your food's not going to go bad. You can have it whenever you want, and you can choose the food that you want, where in other places it's just whatever happens to be around, whatever like people can scrounge up, like that's what they have to eat. They don't have that abundance, right? I certainly experienced that as a Peace Corps volunteer. I don't know if I mentioned that to you when you and I were connecting, but I lived in West Africa for 2 years doing Peace Corps service, and my setup, my dwelling was pretty much like the same as all the people that in my village. I had a small square hut, no electricity, no running water. My toilet was a pit latrine in the backyard and everything. But it was a tough adjustment, but it was also a very humbling experience. Just kind of that realization that, I don't really need very much. I mean, all my basic needs are covered. And then I can kind of own my time however I want. So like I read a lot of books, I worked out a lot because there's no bars or nightclubs or cinemas or anything like that to go to. So I just acquired a lot of knowledge and I stayed very physically fit. But one thing that I did observe, and I certainly want to ask you about this, was it was an even harder adjustment to come back to the U.S. after that, because, people are getting upset with what I thought were very trivial things like, oh no, the Wi-Fi went down for a couple of hours, how horrible, right? So did you kind of maybe face something similar, like when you came back to the U.S. after some of these observations when you were in some of these developing countries?
To be completely honest, I still find it hard to relate to most people if they haven't had any of those eye-opening experiences. And I don't know if you ever watch, there's a comedian, his name's Louis C.K. You ever hear about him?
The name sounds familiar, but I haven't seen any of his materials. So
I think he's hilarious, and he does this one, he's very thoughtful, and there's this one sketch that he does where he talks about people when he's flying, right? And he's like, there's people on these planes, and I'm sitting next to him, and this guy sitting next to me, he's complaining that the Wi-Fi doesn't work on his airplane. And I'm just looking at him like, you're in a chair in a metal tube flying through the sky that our ancestors 50 years ago wouldn't have even dreamed of, right? And like, I think that, I'm paraphrasing there, but man, I think that pertains to so much stuff that we have now. I mean, just the technology in the past even 20 years has just become so pervasive. And man, I grew up and this is kind of aging me, but like I grew up without the internet. You know,
Same here.
we had 6 channels on TV, and you had to like turn the antenna if you wanted to get more, right? We had like, if you were cool, you had a motorized antenna, right? And if you were lame, you had to like adjust the rabbit ears on your TV or something. Um, and going from that to just more content than you could ever consume in your entire life at your fingertips. And it's hard to wrap your head around that, just like how good we have things. And unless you've experienced, like you were living in austere conditions, or at least visiting a place like that and realizing, hey, like we live better than any of our ancestors ever did. Like this is like the seriously best time to be alive. Regardless of how you feel about politics or any of the social issues going on, or the powers that be playing their cards across the globe. Regardless of how you feel about that, like there's been no better time to be here, and it just sometimes it feels like people just don't appreciate that. It's hard to express unless you've lived that other way.
Do you feel that maybe the vast increase of technology that we've had over the past couple of decades? I mean, obviously, with you working at Recoil Off-Grid, you talk about preparation and being prepared and everything along those lines, survivability. Do you think that with the rise in technology, do you think like maybe a lot of those skills and that knowledge that once used to just be like a normal part of human life on this planet. Like we've always needed to know how to track. We always needed to know how to hunt, how to, clean game, how to fight, off like, let's say invading armies or to expand our territory or acquire more resources. But now it's just like, again, with this technology, we can just push a few buttons on our phone. Someone's bringing a calorically dense meal to our door, right? We don't have to go out and hunt and for any of that stuff or really exert a whole lot of effort to acquire that. But do you think that, and to some degree, the technology that we have now is kind of like an antithesis to our innate human capabilities that we've had for eons on this planet?
I actually have mixed feelings about that, because so you mentioned tracking and hunting and things like that. Um, I would argue that we might still be doing that just on a digital medium, right? So we're still hunting for whatever we're looking for, right? We're like tracking down whatever it is. We're putting in a similar process, but with severely reduced effort. And where I get conflicted is that our predecessors spent so much time and effort improving processes, right? We went from slings to black powder, like bows and arrows to shotguns and rifles and all this stuff. I kind of feel it would be doing our ancestors a disservice if we didn't use the technology that we've built on the backs of their efforts, right? Like we have it so good because of the efforts people put in before us. And if I was if I was a ghost, if I lived in like the 1500s and now I'm a ghost wandering the earth, and I was like, man, like memory foam mattresses exist. I had to sleep on a pile of hay. Why aren't you using this awesome mattress? Like we developed the technology's advanced so much. Like use this. This is way better than sleeping on hay, right? I mean, personally, that's how I would feel. But man, you get into that comfort crisis. That I don't know if you've ever heard that theory. There's a book about it. Just how comfortability leads to complacency, and it's kind of like a downward destructive cycle. So Yeah, I think we should appreciate what we have, but I also think we should, stay connected to how things used to be and how we've got from where we were to where we are now. And like I said, I have conflicting, complex feelings about that.
Well, there's certainly a dichotomy to that, isn't there? Of course, you and I got connected through the means of technology. We're able to have this conversation through means
Yeah.
of advanced technology. But I think when push comes to shove, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you were on the ground in Louisiana when Hurricane Katrina came through, one of the most devastating storms that this country has ever seen. And and I think at that point, it's just I don't think it really mattered to anyone like how big their Instagram following was. I mean, obviously, Instagram wasn't as prevalent back then as it is now. But like, let's say if we had something like that nowadays, where if a big storm comes through, it doesn't really matter like how many followers you have from across the world. I mean, if you don't know who your next door neighbors are, and can you help them? Can they help you? So I find that kind of like interesting, where people will know a who's who of whomever, like so everywhere around the world, but they don't even know who lives right next door to them, right? So I think there's a dichotomy to utilizing technology, and again, especially when we face these, very difficult situations. In this case, like we're talking about a natural disaster.
hmm Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks, especially with not just social media, but just the internet in general and how powerful it's become. We can isolate ourselves to a point where we don't know who our neighbors are and we don't have a strong sense of community. And sadly, it takes an event like a hurricane or an earthquake or a wildfire to cut that system out and wake people up and realize, hey, I'm a part of something that's around me and we should help each other out. That's the one silver lining, if you could call it that I've seen in any sort of natural disaster response or any sort of civil unrest response and anything that negatively affects a wide area, is that people sort of come out of the digital stupor for a little bit and they get reconnected and they're like, most people have kindness in their hearts when that sort of thing happens. There are bad actors who go to disaster areas and loot and take advantage and all that stuff. But the vast majority of people are helping each other out, cutting trees out of garages, sharing water and food, watching kids while the adults can go, help their neighbors fix stuff up and move stuff around. So there is, like I said, so I hesitate to call it a silver lining, but like that is, there is something good that comes out of those bad situations.
Well, I think nature just has a way of bringing the people together for better or for worse. I mean, like if you pass like people on, let's say, a hiking trail, you kind of sometimes will stop and talk because you have that shared connection of the love for the outdoors and appreciating being out in nature. But of course, in this case, when nature has like the final say and wants to send a storm through a large swath of the community, well, then people are brought together that way as well. So, I mean, and you mentioned the comfort crisis earlier. That was one of the points in the book that I read from Michael Easter, was that about the fact that even like nature itself, we've kind of tried to. I mean, I don't know if I'd say deliberately try, but it seems to be what we've done is we've disconnected ourselves from nature quite a bit. Our large cities and trying to avoid, and again, seeking comfort, which sometimes will keep us indoors rather than out in the wild, which again is how our ancient ancestors have done it for eons. Just having to be out in the wild all the time. Just out of sheer necessity in order to survive.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we need that friction of discomfort to be stronger and get better and improve ourselves. But at the same time, we seek that comfort because at the very foundational level, we're thermoregulating our body temperature and we're trying to conserve calories and do all this stuff. So, I mean, you could go back and forth on it for a while.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a little bit about your time in Michigan because that's actually my home state. That's where I'm from originally. So where were you when you said you were doing forestry servicing or something along those lines?
Yeah, I was in Upper Michigan.
Mm.
So above the bridge. I wasn't a troll like some people who live below the bridge. Shout out to all the trolls in Michigan.
All right, I'll take it.
Yeah, I was so I don't know if you've ever heard of the Keweenaw Peninsula.
Hmm.
So I lived up there.
Wow. So
It-
you were way up there.
very like 8 hours north of Toronto. A lot of snow, lake effect snow, very remote, a lot of wilderness, and that's where I was doing forestry contracts for the state. That's where we did a lot of wilderness search and rescue operations. Um, Great group of people up there. Very dense wilderness. It was an interesting place.
So, like when it came to doing the search and rescue, what were some of the areas that you found yourself going to? Like, were you going to Porcupine Mountains, Pictured Rocks, Trap Hills? Where'd you have to go to?
Yeah, the Porkies were basically the I would say the western boundary of our region, um, all the way up to Copper Harbor, all the way over to maybe as far as Marquette. But there's a lot of it's a lot of boreal forest, which is maple trees, coniferous trees, some swamps and bogs. In the winter, the Keweenaw could get 400 plus inches of snow. Um, in the summer, the mosquitoes and flies could be terrible. Beautiful area, don't get me wrong, but man, it could throw some challenges your way pretty quick.
Yeah, I actually walked across the entire state a few years ago. I started on the Wisconsin-Michigan state line, so hiked all the way through the Upper Peninsula and then did the Lower Peninsula. And I just remember those mosquitoes. This was kind of getting towards the end of summer, going into fall. And I swear those things just like eat deep for breakfast. Like it didn't matter how much I layered up or how much I put on. It's just like those those guys just had like needles just right through my shirt.
In the middle of summer, I had like thick canvas pants on. I had flannel shirt on. I had gloves. I had the mosquito net. I was walking around with one of those thermal cells. I had like an electric mosquito racket. I was like prepped for mosquito war. It was brutal up there.
But of course, like experiences like that, I mean, I know that probably prepared you pretty well for some of the other things that you've done throughout your life. Because I know that you just actually were down in South America, like I think just maybe a couple months ago, you were like deep in the Amazon, weren't you?
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Bushcraft Global. They organize trips to different regions in South America. This one was to Colombia, and they've got connections with like the indigenous people who live in those regions. And so where I went to, we had to fly. First, we went to Bogota and took a connecting flight to a town called Leticia. It's completely landlocked. The only way to get there is by airplane or by taking a boat down the Amazon River.
Wow.
And so it's like if you look at Leticia on a map, it's where um, Colombia, Peru, and Brazil connect, and they call that area the Three Frontiers. And it is in the heart of Amazonia. The jungle is all around. It's a green carpet if you look at Google Maps. And yeah, we got there. We did like a day and a half doing some acclimatization, and then a pickup truck took us as far as the road would go, and then we got out with our indigenous guides, and we hiked into the jungle for about 3.5, 4 hours, and set up camp, and we lived out there for almost 2 weeks. Just with our hammocks and whatever we carried in our packs, and man, that it's difficult to describe what that experience was like, but it was profound.
It's pretty interesting how they were able to establish that connection, because like as I understand it, especially with the Métis tribe down there, is that no one is allowed to go onto their lands whatsoever, so they usually have to come out of their own lands to meet with visitors and everything like that. So I'm really curious, like, do you know how they pulled that off? How did they establish such a connection like that?
Well, so there's a place down there called the Tanimboka Nature Reserve.
Mm,
And they, like, South American tourists come there to go on jungle tours and stuff like that. So the guy who runs that, he has connections with the local indigenous. It's interesting you say that because we almost went to Matisse land, but it changed at the last minute. I'm not sure why. But we ended up instead. So we had some Matisse with us. Like we had an elder. His name's Quinny. Tupa. She's like one of the best Matisse craftsmen there are. She's technically like a Matisse princess from her like father being like the king of the Matisse back in the day. And just to like put it in perspective, Quinny, the Matisse elder who was with us, he remembers first contact with the outside world.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like we got to talk to him about that. So like they haven't been, connected too long with everything, but he was there. Tupa and Toomey, the Toomey was like a preteen teenage boy who came with, and then we actually stayed on oh gosh, I don't want to mess it up. So we had a representative from the Tikuna and a representative from the Yakuna. I want to say we were on Yakuna land, but all of us were invited onto that property. Yeah, you have to get permission first. And yeah, permission is a really good idea because we were allowed to ask them anything, right? They were not bashful, and the topic of cannibalism came up, and that stuff still exists out there, right? It still exists. Mostly, it sounds like from between warring tribes, but there's a dozen-ish. It might be a little more than that. There's a handful of tribes that have made contact with the outside world. There might be over 100 still out there that haven't.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
So you don't want to like bump into the wrong people at the wrong time, or, be without somebody who can help communicate and like vouch for you and do all this stuff. You definitely, want to go with people who have those connections rather than just, I'm going to just wing it down there and see what happens. It's probably not going to end the way you want it to.
Well, obviously, we can name of a couple of tribes in the Amazon, but of course, then we forget just how vast sometimes or we sometimes forget just how vast the Amazon actually is. And so, yes,
Yeah.
we know about these tribes, but like you said, or like you've learned, there could be hundreds more that we don't know about yet. We just know the ones that we can name and and publish about, right? So that's kind of a crazy thing to think about that. And I think there's that mystery, there's that allure to the jungle a little bit, isn't there? Where there's still so much that about that place that we don't know about, even though we've been exploring it for a very long time. It still holds a lot of secrets.
Oh, I mean, that jungle alone is almost the size of the United States, and
Hmm.
it's triple canopy, and in some places you can't see, in front of your arm, much less, a vast area around you. So there's a lot of secrets, under the leaves there.
So, getting a chance to meet the Matisse, how was communication? Did you have like an interpreter? Did you actually find that some of them spoke English? How did just kind of to fill us in on just what it was like living amongst them for those 2 weeks?
It was interesting. It was a game of telephone, because like Quinny, the Matisse elder, he didn't really speak any other language. So we had a guy who could translate English to Portuguese, and then the woman and her son could translate the Portuguese into Matisse. And it was that game of telephone going back and forth. And a lot of times, I mean, you'd be surprised how much you can communicate non-verbally, right? I was fortunate enough to go on a spider monkey hunt with Quinny, with the elder. We made blowguns, and went out there. And it was me and one other guy from our group and Quinny, and neither of us spoke Matisse, right? We were both English or American dudes, and we went out with him, and it was a lot of nonverbal, hand signs, pointing to where we were looking, and different things like that. We didn't really need to speak the language, but yeah, it was fascinating to hear these guys because you'd be surprised. Okay, in the jungle, like in the forests around here, you sound kind of gets muffled, right? You can like scream your lungs out and nobody will hear you. But for some reason in the jungle, it carries. Your voice carries a long way. And the tribesmen down there were like talking very like they were very soft spoken. Like their voice didn't travel farther than they wanted it to. And so like maybe it wasn't giving away their position or scaring away game or whatever, but they talked very quietly. And when I got back, I didn't realize how I had adjusted the volume of my voice because people I knew were like, "Why are you whispering?" And I was like, "Oh, that's just my jungle voice," because you kind of like pick that up along the way. It was pretty interesting.
What kind of skills did you pick up from them? Because one of the things that I'm sort of fascinated about, and of course, I'm an anthropologist myself, is that, well, for one, that the jungle is a very harsh environment. I mean, everything from like the tiniest of microorganisms all the way up to the apex predator, everything in there is just like fighting for survival, right? And that's why they say that even just like something as small as like a paper cut could be very detrimental unless if you treat it like almost right away. So I can just imagine just like the trial and error that like a tribe like the Métis had to undergo throughout the ages, just to identify, what in the jungle can maybe save you or what's going to kill you. So,
Well, it was really interesting that you say that because so we like I said, we had three different tribes with us, and the Métis were coming from a different place, and he was asking the Yacuna and Tacuna tribesmen about plants and uses and the way they do things in their region of the jungle and how they were different from the Métis region of the jungle. So even though the jungle looks like one giant homogeneous thing, there's differences throughout as you go. And we were learning from them, they were learning from each other. It was really cool to see. Like for like blowguns, for an example, like the Yacuna blowgun style is wildly different from the way the Métis make them, right? And the way they make traps are similar but a little different. The uses they have for medicinal herbs is a little different. But the jungle is everything. The jungle is a grocery store, it's a pharmacy, it's a hardware store. Like everything you need to do anything is out there if you're familiar with it and you know what to do. And I mean, we did a little bit of everything. I mean, we were eating caiman and stingray and fish, piranhas out of the water. We were eating palm grubs out of the trees. We were making traps. We were making tools. We were learning about the different critters and stuff. We went on night walks and looked for things. I wouldn't recommend doing any of that without somebody who was familiar with the area and knew when to stop and what to look for and all these different things. Because you're right. I mean, I think the two most dangerous encounters we came across was wandering spiders or banana spiders, because they're more prevalent and they're kind of everywhere. And if you're not watching out for them, they're very poisonous. And stingrays, if you're crossing the water,
stingrays. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
freshwater stingrays. They follow. It's the water's always murky, right? So you can't see them. And if you don't walk, you kind of have to shuffle your way across the water so they can feel you coming and get out of your way. Because if you step on one of those and they sting you, they hit you with their stinger. That stinger's coated with this, like, I don't know, this grubby slime, and you'll get infected. Like, you have to find a way to a hospital if you get stung by one of those. The Matisse will actually, if they catch a stingray and it's too small to eat, they'll cut the stinger off and throw it back so they get bigger. But now they won't get stung later on.
Now, similar question to what I asked you earlier about when I asked you about coming back from a developing country to a developed one and just the changes that you saw with the people. I actually kind of want to ask you about just how'd you feel about the drastic change in nature when you came back from the jungle? Because you were there for 2 weeks, totally immersed in this environment, and there was nothing outside of it that really, took up very much a headspace, I would assume. And this is coming from personal experience because I actually just got back from Antarctica last week, and
very cool.
Yeah, and I remember just being there and seeing more penguins than I did people, and just completely being immersed in just this vast wilderness as far as the eye can see, and seeing penguins and seals and then humpback whales breach the water. And then I come home and then I'm stuck in rush hour traffic in San Antonio, and just trying not to lose my mind, just being surrounded by so many people and all this chaos and congestion all of a sudden. So did you maybe face something similar after emerging from the jungle after that long?
I want to answer your question, but I also want to know, how the heck did you get to Antarctica? You said Antarctica, right?
Antarctica, yes.
What? How did you end up there? How do you get there?
Well, I've always wanted to go. It's on my bucket list to go to all 7 continents. Antarctica was number 6 for me. And, I found a good expedition company that does sailing cruises. I sailed out of Ushuaia in the southern part of Argentina on a boat that's also called the Ushuaia. And I'm really hoping I get these details correctly, but it used to be an old research vessel that has since been retired from doing research and has been outfitted to be more of a passenger liner. Pretty simple ship, pretty simple setup, but it worked for exactly what we needed for. And it's a very resilient ship because we had to cross the Drake Passage. And
I was going to ask about that. Was it super crazy going across there?
It lived up to its reputation. Yes, all the stories that you hear about the Drake Passage being very treacherous waters, it's all true. I'll just put it that way, because we're talking about the body of water that connects both the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. So yes, very treacherous. And I remember it takes about 2 days to fully cross the Drake Passage, going either way, and the first day is the worst. That's when you feel it the most. And all of us, we were all taking motion sickness medicine. We didn't really see very much of each other during those couple of days because a lot of us were confined to our quarters, because really the best way to defeat I was about to say jet lag, but seasickness is to be laying down, to be horizontal with the ship. But even then it was still kind of hard because the boat was rocking so much. I'm literally being rolled back and forth in my bed. And then of course you have to secure everything. I just put everything loose in one of my bags and left it on the floor. If you leave it on top of the desk or on top of the lockers or anything like that, it's going to come spilling off. It's not going to stay put. So, and then even eating meals was kind of hard too. Going up to the dining room, you can hear the plates falling off of countertops and crashing on the floor because the ship was literally swaying that much. So it was a little bit of it was a kind of a test of endurance to a degree, because we had to endure the constant motion of the ship for about 40 hours or something like that. And then once we made it through there, though, and it started calming down, everyone kind of started perking up a little bit, feeling better, being able to get up and move around. And they even closed off certain parts of the ship. We were only allowed to stay inside the ship. Like they didn't want us going on any of the outer decks or anything like that because the
They would
fear
just
of
lose you forever.
yes, the chances of falling overboard, I'd say, were quite high if you actually went outside while crossing the Drake Passage. But
Damn.
yes, so sailed there, and then we were just basically going to different parts around Antarctica for about 5 days. We would go to a certain spot, drop anchor, and then we would get in the back of these Zodiac inflatable boats, and then we would make different landings in different spots. So a couple of different islands, and then of course we made landfall on the continent itself, the Antarctic Peninsula, and it was just incredible. But still, it's just like I said, being immersed in like all this wilderness. You see these mountains and all of this snow and these icebergs floating in just this fresh, reflective water and penguins everywhere, hundreds of them. And another really cool thing that happened on our trip is we actually got to see an emperor penguin, which in this part of Antarctica is actually quite rare. There's three main species that you'll see there. You have the Gentoo penguins, the chinstrap penguin, and the Adélie penguins or Adelaide penguins, and they're pretty small. So an emperor penguin is about 4 feet tall, which is about 3 times larger than all these other penguin species. But they typically dwell deeper into Antarctica where it gets even colder. Like sometimes they're able to withstand temperatures up to like -70 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's crazy.
They're insane. But we actually saw one, and there was one of my guides said he'd been leading or he'd been guiding expeditions in this part of Antarctica for like over a decade, and this was maybe like the fourth emperor penguin that he's ever seen. So that was truly special. So, but
That's really
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So I just got back from that last week, and it was pretty awesome. But like I said, though, it was hard coming back home from that because being in such vast, untouched wilderness for that long, seeing more penguins than people, and then coming back and I'm stuck in rush hour traffic and all the congestion and the chaos and the noise of, modern life. So again, similar question. Coming back home from being immersed in the jungle for that long, what was that like?
It's a little jarring. And not just coming back home, going through the like connecting airports, just the crowds and the noise, because if you're just in pure wilderness for a while and you get used to the silence and just the slower pace of things, and even disconnecting from emails and whatever YouTube or whatever you watch or pay attention to, and your surroundings become the entertainment, and the people you're with become the entertainment, and then to jump back into where everybody's distracted, everybody's going 100 miles an hour, getting to wherever they're going to go. It can be a melancholy type of feeling, but yeah, it makes you want to go back and find more places like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a tough feeling leaving and getting off the ship and knowing that my trip was over and yeah, I guess even before I made it home, I sort of started feeling that sort of that way, especially going through the airports again. And then, I had to go up to Buenos Aires and I had to Uber from one airport to the next and just a lot of traffic in there. And also driving in that city was kind of like a free for all. Like I think stop signs and yield signs were kind of sort of irrelevant to a lot of drivers, it seemed like to me.
They're just suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I noticed. And then also like my Uber driver was not shy about getting up behind people and tailgating them and trying to get them out of the way so he could, go just a little bit faster with me in the back.
I don't know if you experienced the same thing, but did you ever stop and just wonder like, what the hell are we doing? Like, why are we in such a hurry to go someplace? Or like, what do we think is important things to spend our time on? You start looking around and you realize everybody's kind of lost in their bubble, and it's I don't know, you just kind of want to go around and shake people.
Right. Well, my theory, and I'd like to get your take on this as well. We were talking about technology earlier. I personally think that we as humans have not evolved like fast enough to keep up with the rise in technology that we've
Oh, no way.
implemented onto ourselves. I mean, if you were to think about this, like with you being like deep in the jungle as you were, and then also me being deep in Antarctica, and you and I having very limited means to, like you said, check social media, check the news, watch videos on YouTube, or whatever. It's just that if something was happening either back in the States or in some other part of the world, we wouldn't know about it. And honestly, I don't think we ever were meant to know about what was going on beyond our immediate circle, because as we've evolved as humans throughout the ages, our world was just literally what we could see with our own two eyes, right? That was all that really mattered. It was the people around us, the resources that we can go out and get ourselves with our own hands, and everything like that. And it's been that way all the way up until like very, very recent times. I mean, again, now with the internet, we're so connected. It's just, and then we're so inundated with so much stuff. It's like, again, we were only really supposed to know what was happening very much for the most part in our local communities, and now people are worried about like conflicts in the Middle East, conflicts in Eastern Europe, and this is happening there, that bad thing is happening over there. Oh, this just happened over in the next state over, and it's just and then I'd like to think, and I'm not a psychologist, but maybe that's also why we see so many instances of, people wanting to be on like depressants or, seeking therapy and this, that, and the other thing too, because I just don't think our brains have evolved to deal with this much stimuli and that much stress. So
I
I
actually
think
have
maybe that's the
I actually
reason
have a
why.
theory. I actually have a theory about that. So I don't just go to like cool wilderness places and stuff. With Recoil Offgrid, we also do the tactical side of things, different types of tactical training, firearms training, and things like that. Um, we are interesting creatures in that we have evolved. Our bodies have evolved physiologically to deal with threats, right? And so have our brains. So when Quinny and the rest of his Matisse buddies are in the jungle, and a jaguar jumps out, right? The I I think some people call it the lizard brain, right? The
That's what I've heard.
amygdala, right? It takes over. They call it the amygdala hijacking. It it like just takes over your body. That's what causes the flight, fight, or freeze response. So that amygdala, it signals your adrenal glands. It's pumping catecholamines into your body. Um, you know, Fine motor function goes away. It's like you're in like a brutality fight, or you're trying to get away as fast as you can. And that's how we evolved to cope with problems in a wilderness setting, or maybe intertribal, right? Because what are people if not animals, right? And that's how we've been. There's the same thing happens if you deploy and you get into a firefight, or you're walking home from the grocery store and somebody pulls a gun on you, or those types of situations. But I don't think people realize there's something else that causes your amygdala to hijack your brain. And if it's somebody tells you something, either verbally, orally written, whatever, or however they want to present to you information that conflicts with your view of the world. Right. So there were people tossing around the idea of being addicted to outrage and things like that. Yeah, because it's a survival instinct that keeps you alive. We are addicted to it because that's our body's way of, prolonging our genome, to other generations, right? So this information deluge that we're getting from all these different sources, they're doing the exact same thing as a jaguar in the jungle would do. And like we're not even realizing that that's happening. So I think you're completely onto something. You know, if we're constantly under the effects and being exposed to those chemicals that the amygdala sends out to your body to keep you alive, if you got those in your blood for too long, that causes a massive amount of problems down the line. Like your body has to go back and reset because not everything is a threat. But like if social media is designed to like keep your attention, what's going to keep your attention more than conflicting ideas and things that irritate you? And like they're trying to hijack your amygdala to keep your eyeballs on the threat. And like I said, that's my theory. It could be all anecdotal, but I think I'm onto something where, that feeling of going back from the jungle or going back from Antarctica and be like, oh man, now I'm back in this again. I think that's just us realizing like we're under that information threat here, among all the other stuff that could possibly happen. And it doesn't feel great.
Well, I mean, when we talk about stress, for instance, and what we're talking about, you brought up this idea of, a big cat jumping down from a tree, and we face that acute stress to get ourselves through that situation, which normally isn't really meant to be a very prolonged situation. It's like you either, take that big cat down or you run away and you get out of there. Or I guess ultimately it gets you, however else. But normally it's that acute stress that gets you through there where you can sprint really fast to get away if you choose flight or whatever. And but that's supposed to be a very, like you said, a short momentary thing. Your body's supposed to down regulate from there and to reach a little bit of a homeostasis from there. But nowadays, and just, as we've been talking about here, with people being so inundated and always wanting to go 100 miles an hour, and it's just, we're answering to so many people. There's the stress that we may have of our jobs. Sometimes we may have stress in families. Then we got finances, and then of course, like you hear about there was a shooting, let's say in your town somewhere. There's police involved. You have civil unrest, and then there's terrorism. It's just, I mean, all this stuff compounds itself so much, and then we're constantly we're having so much cortisol, just flow through us all the time, and and I will admit, Patrick, I'm guilty of that sometimes too, and sometimes I just have to remind myself, it's just put the phone down, put the phone down, just pick up a book, like go outside and go for a walk or go for a run, hit the gym, just do something like productive and just kind of just disconnect for a little bit. And actually, like we have a rule in my house, and that is even that we have to remind our guests to follow sometimes, is that no phones at the dinner table. It's like if you come and break bread with us, your phone stays on the kitchen counter or in the next room or whatever, but it doesn't come to the dinner table. Like the dinner table is that's our world right there, each other, and the conversations that we have. So I do think, yes, maybe I do think that probably a lot of people could use that reminder, is just focus on like what's just happening immediately around you, and not just always what's I guess over there. Because like sometimes I ask myself when it comes to like especially everything we've had the last several years with the division of politics or and everything like that, and we don't need to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but I just couldn't help but ask myself, is just, are people just waking up just looking for something to be mad about? Like is that your mission for the day, is just to find something that you're upset about? So
I can't cite the exact study, but when they do brain surgery, they have to keep you awake, and they can touch certain places on your cortex and it will induce an emotion, right? So they can push the pleasure button. You're like, oh, I feel pleasure. Or, oh, I feel happy. Oh, I feel sad. There was one emotion that they asked, if there was any emotion you could go back and stimulate again, what was it? And I think universally everybody said the anger emotion. So like
interesting.
I think there's an addicting quality to it. Like, yeah, we do seek it out. Like, we want to feel that way for whatever reason. And I don't exactly know why, but it seems to check out what you were saying, how we kind of seek it out. We're looking for reasons to, incite that. I'm not exactly sure why that would be, other than maybe there is an addictive, like you want to feel that way to keep you alive in a dangerous situation. So maybe for some reason we seek it out to some subconscious level, keep us alive. I don't know.
Well, of course, for me, whenever I have those emotions, because I mean, anger is a normal emotion. We all experience it to some degree every now and then. But I always like to say that what makes me feel better as a result of being angry is well, I guess for lack of better terms, conquest, not necessarily like me going out and conquering other people or anything like that, but I mean just like kind of conquering certain things in my own life, like going into the gym and conquering a workout, or with this podcast, like getting a bunch of editing done, or doing a lot of outreach to try to secure guests, or this, that, and the other thing too. So it's just so I think my personal response to anger is to seek out dopamine in a very positive way by producing tangible results and positive outcomes. I would say sublimation, I believe, is the psychological term for that. So, but I guess, but sometimes it's just when it comes to anger, I think what we tend to observe more often than not is like, I guess for lack of better terms, misdirected anger, because sometimes people are getting angry at people who aren't even really have nothing to do with the reason why they're angry in the first place. Like, again, they see something on social media that rubs them the wrong way. Next thing you know, they're going to a grocery store yelling at the cashier, even though that cashier had nothing to do with it. Or the barista who might have didn't put like 2 shots of espresso in their coffee and only put in 1 by mistake, or whatever the case may be.
Road rage. Look how people get in the cars. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well,
piss the wrong person off, you could get shot while you're driving down the interstate.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing too. I got to remind myself, it's just that you just never really know who's in the next car over. I mean, we all have a history, we all have a past, and you just don't know what the person next to you's story is. So, I just brush it off. And what I always say is we're really getting deep in the psychological aspect of this as well. I just like it. Yeah, I just say, if it's not going to matter 5 years from now, don't spend no more than 5 minutes dwelling on it. I mean, so someone cuts you off in traffic, that didn't result in an accident. That's not going to matter like 5 years down the line. Like, are you going to be on your deathbed one day just, reflecting on like that time you got cut off? Or are you going to try to reflect on good memories that you built for yourself? So that's the way I go about it.
I think that's something that you have to practice to get good at. I think it's easy to be mad and hold grudges and do those things. It's more difficult to, be grateful and show appreciation. And that goes way back to where we kind of started in this conversation, is people just not appreciating what they've got or where they're at. If you spend a little more time thinking about just how good life is and how good it can be, I think if more people did that, it'd be the world might be a better place.
Absolutely. But of course, as we've been talking about here, not everything can go the way we like. Sometimes things can get a little out of control. Mother Nature, as I always say, she always has the final say. And sometimes, we do need to keep ourselves ready. And I know that's what the mission is over at Recoil Offgrid, is to give people information and to help them prepare as best they can. So tell us a little bit more about the publication, and where can people go and find it?
Yeah, so we basically, if you look up Recoil Offgrid on any social media, that's our handle. We have a print magazine. We also have the magazine's also digital. So however you like to consume your publications, you can get the more tactile feel of the magazine. Comes in handy if the power goes out. The digital's also fine. We also have a website with a repository of like 2,500 plus articles, all things survival related. So we were fortunate that we can talk to just the most like top tier subject matter experts on things. It's not just me writing my opinion about survival or whatever. If there's a subject that we want to learn more about, we reach out to them, whether that's operators in the field, tier one unit people. We've interviewed alone contestants, like all these different people. Just a huge wealth of knowledge out there on offgridweb.com if you want to find it. The magazine's also great. We have Recoil TV. Some of our stuff is up there. We're thinking about launching a Recoil Off-Grid YouTube channel in the future, so there might be more stuff to consume online if you want. But yeah, just look up Recoil Off-Grid. You'll find a bunch of stuff.
All right. Well, I'll have it linked in the show notes for this episode, or if people are watching us talk on YouTube, it'll be down in the description below. So I'll definitely encourage everyone to go down there, click away, and find everything. And I heard y'all released a very great article on man tracking lately. So yeah, I definitely want to encourage everyone to go and check that out too.
Heck yeah, we got a few of those, and been working with Greenside Training a lot. Shout out to Freddie Osuna from Greenside. He's hands down. You'd be hard pressed to find another person with that much tracking information. Check out Greenside Training for sure.
Yeah, and I did take his Weaponize the Senses course back in June, which of course I wrote about for the magazine, and just great man too, just like the salt of the earth type of human being, if you ask me, and just really loved his enthusiasm with the craft that he has and his willingness to share it with others, and of course a fellow Marine as well too. So. Yeah, so if anyone wants to check out that article and learn more, I'll leave that link in the description below and as well in the show notes. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, as we kind of start winding down our conversation, Patrick, I have a few more standard questions that I like to ask all my guests towards the end of the show. And the first thing I like to ask my guests to do is to issue a challenge to our listeners and our viewers, because we got to hear some great stories from you today. We got to get some great information from you today. But I always say that stories, information, inspiration, all that stuff can really only take our listeners and viewers so far. If they want to do amazing things in their lives, they're going to have to follow up what they hear today with action in order to do so. So with that, what challenge would you issue to our listeners and viewers today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
Okay, well, this one's easy. I want to issue the 30-day get off the couch and carry a 25-pound backpack 2-mile challenge comfortably, right? I think people overestimate their abilities when it comes to the whole idea of something's going down, we got to get our stuff and bug out or whatever is so romanticized. But if you can't even walk around the block without getting winded or without getting muscle fatigue or getting thirsty or like all these different things, like if you can't handle a walk around the block, you're not going to handle a collapse or like a bug out scenario, right? So put down the phone, go for a walk, like start with a half mile, by the end of a month, be able to do 2 miles with a 25-pound pack and come back and feel good. If you come back and you're falling apart at the seams, you probably need a little more physical training. But the best way to survive anything is to build a solid physical foundation. You can handle everything better if you're in good shape. If you're in good shape and you're eating well, you don't get stressed as easily. You can recover from stress and injuries better. You're able to can you carry your friend or loved one to safety? Can you pull them out of a burning vehicle? Can you pull yourself out of a burning vehicle? If you can't do those things, if you can't self-rescue or rescue those that you love, you're kind of in a bad situation. Get into shape. Get physically fit. You know what? I take it back. It doesn't even have to be 2 miles. I just want to see some sort of progress from you guys out there. Just get into shape.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even though, yes, like we've talked about, there is the idea of, calorie preservation, energy preservation with our ancient ancestors, but also at the same time, we are physiologically built to move. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
just getting up and walking. That is literally our natural state. And, sometimes I think just like as a service member, as a veteran, I'm reminded of just how fortunate I am that I actually am able-bodied enough to get up and do something like go for a walk or go for a run or go for the gym. My girlfriend is a prosthetist. She crafts prosthetic limbs for amputee service members, and then the way that she kind of describes like how a lot of come to them, and not only are they physically broken but like spiritually and mentally broken too, that they lost a part of themselves, and they're just coming in with like so much hope that she's going to be able to help them get back on their feet again, and they can regain some sort of semblance of normalcy that they once had, because they're just so hopeful for the chance just to be able to walk again, or to compete again, or whatever the case may be. So the fact that I actually have the physical capability to get up and walk, I certainly don't take that for granted either. So I do like that challenge, Patrick, because it's just we are built to move. And we are grateful to have that ability to do so. So I say, why not utilize it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Okay, so what I have for you next is my final three questions that I like to think that these are fun questions. But again, all of my guests get asked this at the end of the show. So here we go. Question number one. What is your favorite place that you've been to so far? Did I mention these were loaded questions?
Favorite place that I've been to? That's tough. There's some pretty cool places out there. Can I marinate on that while you ask the second one?
Sure.
Or does this got to be rapid fire? Do I have to like
No, it doesn't have to be rapid fire at all. Yeah, we'll come back to this one. So
Okay.
question number two, what is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
One thing on my bucket list, I want to go. I think it's in New Zealand or maybe it's Australia, but there's a cave. There's a series of caves that you can kayak into, and there's like glowworms all over. And I really want to see that. I don't know why I'm so fascinated with bioluminescence, but I think it's really cool. Oh, when I was in the Amazon, we were hammock camping, right? And at night it's triple canopy, so like there's no stars, it's completely pitch black. And I was laying there and I kind of just rolled my head over to the side and was kind of listening to the jungle noise. And I realized that the forest floor was starting to glow. And I was like, what's happening here? And as my eyes adjusted, because it wasn't very bright, but as my eyes adjusted, I could see like the shape of leaves glowing scattered like it was a starry sky, but on the ground. And it was bioluminescent fungus on the bottom of the leaves that was starting to glow. It was super cool. I love that sort of thing. I really want to see those caves. That's on my bucket list. I got to make that happen.
All right. Well, that's definitely a first to come up on the podcast, Patrick. No one else has answered this second question that way before. So very good. All right. But okay, going back to question number one, anything come to mind as a favorite place so far?
Okay. So California gets a bad rap for a lot of different reasons. It's where I live now presently. There are some amazing places out here, and one of those places is the Muir. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. The Muir redwood forest. Man, if you were to like drop yourself in Lord of the Rings, like one of the elf forests in Lord of the Rings, that's what that place is like. There is like this hauntingly beautiful, like tree cathedral, like there's canyons, but these giant coastal redwoods, like you could put your house inside of one. They're so big. It's like incomprehensible to describe. That I think, God, that's one of my favorite places. I don't know if I can say just like one favorite place, man. That's tough. That's so tough.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up about California. I mean, of course, I went out there for basic training, and I have done some stuff in and around there for archaeology. But it's just, I just remembered learning just how diverse that state is from a natural perspective. Of course, you got the tall, and the massive redwoods like you just described. You get a little bit further out east, you actually can get up in mountains, and it could be
Yosemite.
It can be snowing. Yeah.
Yosemite's another place. Like that place is mind blowing when you see it. Like just huge waterfalls and stuff. And then like in the south, you got like the Joshua Tree National Forest, like the deserts out there. You got lava caves up north. It's crazy, man. Like there's so much beauty out here.
Yeah. So, and I'm trying to think, has anyone else brought up anywhere in California yet? I can't remember, so I'll give that to you as like another original answer for this question. So we're 2 for 2 for original answers, but I got one more question for you in this final 3, and this is a two-parter. What is your favorite animal, and have you seen this animal in the wild?
I am going to have to say my favorite animal is a cat. And I have seen bobcats up north in Michigan. You know what? I haven't seen a mountain lion in the wild, but I've seen their tracks. But like cats are just so cool. Like, I mean, they can see in the dark. Their purring heals you. Their reflexes are insane. Like they can see at like 1 million frames per second. So like everything they're looking at kind of looks like slow motion. That's why they can react so quickly and like grab things. I think they're just like the coolest creatures.
Well, yeah, that makes sense considering like some of the reactionary feats that you see cats do. Like even just a simple, like small domestic cat can actually like jump out of the way of a striking cobra, like faster than that snake can strike because it's so fast. And I actually saw one video and that they had this camera zoomed in on a bobcat, and someone actually tried hitting it with a rifle. This bobcat dodged the bullet like in midair. It actually like moved its head like super fast and dodged the bullet. I'm like, what on earth? That was amazing.
Can I say something controversial here at the end? I'm going to hate on dog people for a little bit because if you got a domestic cat, if you have a domestic cat, right? You have to earn their trust.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And they have to like feel some good vibes coming from you. And like once you're friends with that cat, like that cat trusts you and they're loyal, right? But dogs, they will just, anybody who gives them attention or a treat, like even if you think they're loyal to you, some guy's gonna be like, oh, who's a good puppy? Here's a whatever. That dog's gonna go straight over there and get more attention. So like, what the heck? Like, is that loyalty, or are they just like attention whores? Like, what's with the dog, right? What's so great about dogs? Answer me that. Leave your comments down below. What's so great about dogs? Because I don't see it.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, fire away down in the comments below. Call us names. It's whatever. go for it, dog people. But I mean, I do like dogs too. I mean, because that is, I guess, maybe the good thing about maybe that's why they're so appealing is that they will love you the moment you walk in through the door. But yeah, that is the thing about cats though too, is that you do have to earn their affection and their trust, and they're definitely a pet that you have to invest in, like quite a bit. Invest your energy, invest your time, but obviously it's a big payout after you're able to do so for sure. So, all right, well, comment section are open, people.
How'd I do it? Did I go 3 for 3 on those questions?
I mean, someone has said like cats before, but I think I will still give it to you because you said bobcat like before you listed like any other big cats or something like that. Like some people have said like jaguars and cheetahs and stuff like that, but I don't think anyone's brought up bobcats before. So since you honed in on that one specifically, I'll give you that one. So 3 for 3 for original answers on these questions. So. All right. Well, Patrick, that's it. That's all the questions that I have for you tonight. But before we call it a day here, let's just recap one more time. Where our listeners and viewers, where can they go connect with you? Where can they go pick up a copy of Recoil Offgrid? So again, website, social media accounts, retail stores. What do you got for us?
at Recoil Offgrid is our social media handle. Offgridweb.com is our website. And you can find Offgrid at your local Walmart. The magazine is usually in Tractor Supplies, Walmart, different Safeways, wherever you are, wherever you get physical magazines, you'll probably find an issue there.
Okay. And like I said, everything will be linked up in the show notes for this episode or down in the description below if people are watching us talk on YouTube. All right. Well, Patrick, I want to thank you very much for taking time for joining me tonight. I mean, I know we have a little bit of a time difference with you being on the West Coast and me being in Central Texas, and I know you have a lot going on right now, but I really appreciate you being here and sharing your stories and insights with myself and the listeners. This has been great, sir.
It's all good. It's entirely my pleasure. Be back anytime.
All right. Right on.